2NURFM. We've been talking about UFOs this morning, and somebody who knows all about things from the scientific point of view is Professor John O'Connor. And I'm not going to ask you yet, do you think they exist? But there is an interesting history to UFOs.
There is, and Jane, there have been descriptions that go back in recent periods, which always seems to reflect the current form of flight. So, if you go back a few hundred years, they look like balloons. They travel like balloons. They don't travel at an incredible speed, but they're just there. If you go back to ancient Egyptian times, they were seen as chariots with flames associated with them. But yeah, so there's been a long history of people seeing things moving about in the way that we wouldn't expect.
And things that they don't know what they are, so they're unidentified.
Exactly. And in fact, it's important that we make the distinction. These are unidentified flying objects. That doesn't mean they're aliens. It means that they're objects that we don't know about which are flying. There's a separate jump then from being a UFO to being an alien vessel.
And I suppose these days there are a lot more opportunities, I suppose, to see things that we don't identify.
Oh, there are more people, there are more cameras out there. Look at the number of cameras, in mobile phones. One would think there's a huge surge in the number of evidence reports rather than observations, but it hasn't really happened. But I think the thing that really gets some pulses racing is that around at the end of this week, the Pentagon's going to release a file of things that they can't explain. Now, that means they're unidentified flying objects. Well, actually, that isn't what they call them. Their term is unidentified aerial phenomena. Well, it's just relabeling them.
Yes, it is.
But that doesn't mean they're alien vessels, because there's a big step between being an unidentified flying object and being an alien vessel.
So what do you think they're going to come up with as an
Well, they're just going to put it out there for everyone to see and to stop people speculating on what the Pentagon does and doesn't have. There are all sorts of speculations that they've actually got bodies and they've got a craft and so forth. Don't know. They won't be admitting that. But certainly they'll be putting out this evidence they've acquired, I guess in the hope that we could come up, it might prompt a better understanding of what the features are and perhaps an explanation which may not require, extraterrestrials.
Of course, there's so many stories we've all enjoyed over the years about UFOs and aliens and things. But you've come up with an interesting scientific report.
Yes, there's a thing called the Drake equation, which is an attempt to work out how many intelligent civilizations there could be in our galaxy at any one time. And depending on what numbers you put in there, like how many planets around a star and how many in the habitable zone and all these sorts of numbers, the numbers could come up with a reasonable number, dozens, hundreds, even thousands, depending on what numbers you put in there. And Enrico Fermi, almost a century ago, basically said to his students when they were playing with this equation, if there are so many aliens, where are they all? Why aren't they sort of visiting here as tourists or something? And that's prompted people to say, well, they're not there. Or, there could be some other things. I mean, certainly our knowledge of science does limit the capacity of them to be here. And at present, we believe the speed limit is the speed of light. If something's 1,000 light years away, it's going to take them 1,000 years to get here at the speed of light and 1,000 to get back. Who's going to zip across the earth just to check up on what a few people are doing if it's going to take 2,000 years? But the thing that I found most interesting is even if there are intelligent civilizations out there, they may not be able to get off their planet. And this is something that I hadn't really thought about. If the planet is around a red dwarf, a small, very stable star, or more importantly, if it's a planet which is a rocky planet bigger than ours, let's say the Earth was about 50% bigger diameter than it is now. Let's say maybe 10 times the mass. We wouldn't know space travel. Because if it gets up to about 10 times the mass of the Earth, the gravitational pull would mean that we'd need 100 times as much fuel to launch a rocket. Now, we've all seen those huge rockets that launch a small payload into space. I mean, they're enormous. Imagine instead of their rocket that size, something the size of a pyramid, one of the pyramids. And that would be unimaginable as a way of getting something into space. Now that civilization could be very intelligent, could be very advanced, but they wouldn't have GPS, they wouldn't have satellite communication, they wouldn't have a Hubble Space Telescope, and all of these things wouldn't happen for that planet, and they certainly wouldn't be out here visiting us. So it's interesting that there's a potential. We're lucky, actually. We're on a small rocky planet, which means that we can actually go and explore space. There could be intelligent life out there that just doesn't have the chance.
It's still nice to speculate, though, isn't it?
It is indeed. It's nice to speculate, and there are two perspectives here. And a famous physicist said once that it'd be terrible if there was other intelligent life out there, because who knows what they might do, and it would be terrible if we were the only ones, because that's very sad.
We might leave it on that note. Thank you, John O'Connor.
Thank you, Jane.
2NURFM, a broadcast service of the University of Newcastle.